So let's continue on. I forgot to start the video. V'yesh lahire. So here we are down at the bottom. He says you have to point this out. V'masha kasav RASHASH b'daf lamed beis on Aleph, and he says what? The mitzvahs d'oraisa heim bezuna gedolim. Okay, we said that a little bit already. A mitzvah rabbana bezuna gatanim. Because for on mitzvahs leil ha-seder, so now let's talk of the night of the Seder. On the mitzvahs spheres Omer also over there, Ein Sham. But Tzarek Ian Bezeh, so we'll have to look into it. He said the Halacha B'daf Yudal and Amad Aleph should be a Rashash, the Rashbas explained like that, Sham. As Tikune HaMitzvahs Aseh Mitzvahs Lo Sa'aseh. Now, what exactly does it mean here? His boyer Sham, the HaMitzvahs D'oraisa, Shehem Menatzach and Hod, which now this is more interesting to me about how it got to this place where he says that the Mitzvahs D'oraisa have to do with Netzach and Hod. Hanikroim Zuna Gedolim. So he said Netzach and Hod in this case are called Zuna Gedolim. I don't know what Netzach and Hod he's talking about. I thought Zuna Gedolim would have to do with the Rosh. But here he says like this, so let's go on. Hey, mitzvahs she'ena zman grama, and they're mitzvahs that are not time-bound. V'chamitzvah the Rabbanan, hey b'yisod the nikra Yaakov v'Rachel. So this is like a different kind of metaphor, just to remember it. Aval the mitzvahs aseh shal zman grama, but if you hold a mitzvah that you have to do at a certain time. He says, this is another metaphor. He says, hey b'chagat. That would be, so you had the nai, so he says the mitzvahs, the Rabbanan, I really should read it again. He said, because he has a different language here, he said, but he says, the mitzvahs aseh shaman zgarbachem b'chagat, hanekroim abba ve'imba ve'yasas, which are called by these names. Now, say once again, like, where is this, set of labels coming from? Hanekroim abba ve'imba ve'yasas, which are called the levels of Bina. And Sham Hativ, look over there really well. He says, V'im came Eich Kosav al mitzvahs HaSeder, Spheres Omer, Shehem Zuna Gedolim, which is affecting Zuna Gedolim, Hare Hem Mitzvahs Aseh Shazman Groma. He says the reason why is because of that. So that could be read like more. Now, we have some arichas here in the Shefa of Hakavanot, and like I said, I'm not going to go into all of those unless you want to. We'll see how it plays. But I'm going to go to number bet, which is right here on page Shin Kaf, and it says Bekos Rishon Ayidech the Kichas Akos. Now when you take the cup in your hand, let's say you Miras Abrachos V'Hakedesh, all of that Niktas Kav Yamim De'ima. So this particular Bekos Rishon, this is going to be the right side of Ima. So we'd seen that before. Ovakos Rishon Niknas Muach HaChochma de Betzad Ima, so comes in the Muach of Chochma, which is the right line, the top of the right line of Ima. Shehu Nimshach Mekav Yamim de Ima, which comes out of the right line of Ima. Yesh L'skor Shekol Hamshachos HaMochim, so we have to remember this. As we are streaming down these mochin, well, it already, especially for a godless Rishon here, he's already took place. Now this part, I'm not sure that I really understand what he means. He says, where do they go? Oh, Meshachos that took place, they go in at Mariv. He says they go into the penimius of the lomos, of the mitzvahs leil seder, but the mitzvahs that we actually do in the seder, nimshach and amochim, the chitzonius of the lomos. Okay, I just take it as fact. I would have thought it would be the other way, but he says it's like this. So then we'll go over here to number Gimel. Let me get a little drink here. Okay. So it says Techila, the first. That the fact that the Sechalois now Pesach has started and the Kedusha of them, Shlosha Kaveh Hachan, 3 lines of Chacham, the Shlosha Partsufi Kachad, the Hamisha Partsufim, the Yasas. Well, right away you got into a whole trail of it's like a train or a trail of different Partsufim. Let's read it again. But the Chila Yakavin Shagavor V'choya B'koach Kedushas Hayom Shlosha Kavi Hachan. Now, offhand, I would say Hachan is one of the Kavim. But he says there's three kavim here, which are Chochmah, Chesed, and Netzach. The Shlosha Partsufi Kacha. So each one of them has, that is, each of the three Partsufim at the top, the Chamisha Partsufi, the Yasos, so the top of the five Partsufim of Yasos. Now, we're dealing with Yasos, right? So we're going into the Yasos. I was confused by the fact that he says there are three lines of the Chacham. Let's see what the Hakavanot says. But the chilach mekaven es hamochin shegavar niknesu bekedushas hayom. So the first thing is to recognize that the mochin already came as a result of the chalos of Pesach shehu hagadus rishon the yasos, and it's called by that name. It's the hagadus rishon now, of yasos. Hainu hagadlus harishon the Yisrael Saba, that is the gadlus rishon the Yisrael Saba. Hashayach alamochan and nimshacha b'mitzvahs, which pertain to coming in at the time that the hamshacha of the mitzvahs it comes a result of the hamshacha when you're doing the mitzvahs. The hagadlus harishon the tevuna, then also the gadlus harishon the tevuna hashayach alamochan and nimshachem b'kosas, which really goes along with the mochin that are coming in as through the kosas. Now, I didn't even mean both of those, or just what's he saying? So now we're involved with drinking the copes. And we understand that the kosas themselves come from the side of Ima. Rock as a godless Arishan to Devuna. So the first thing you should be doing is thinking about the godless Arishan to Devuna. Migal Makom Makavin Gam es hagadol gadlus arisha the Yisrael Sava. So both of them, but individually, he's saying something like that. Hashayach ala mitzvahs, which refer to those mitzvahs. So I'm still not 100% clear. He seems to me saying that it's coming from, there's a Bina side to it and a Chochmah side to it, but I'm not sure what that means. So we are always thinking, generally speaking, about both Yisrael Sava and Tevuna. So he said, V'hu Hachan. So the line is the line of Chochmah, Chesed, and Netzach, Shu Muach HaChochmah, which is actually the Muach of Chochmah. HaMispashta V'kav Yamin, the Zer Anpin that comes into the top of the head, is Zer Anpin, and the Chochmah stays in the head, and etc. It moves downwards. Shehu Chochmah, Chesed, and Netzach. V'hem Shlosha Kavi Hachan. So that's where he said that same phrase again. He said that these are three lines of the Hachan. Kav Yamin Shehu Hachan Mamshichin Shlosha Pamim. So he says that actually the Hamshacha takes place three different times. Shebekol Hamshachas Mochin the Gadlus Yesh Shlosha Kavim. Every time. So this, I'm still not getting the real drift of this. He says, Shebekol hamshachas mochin the gadlus yesh shlosha kavim. He says there's always three lines. Kemen sheyesh shlosha partsufi gadlus kacha, because, and the reason why you need three lines is because you have to go into keser chochman bina. Shehem neshama chayin yechida. Now, it's helpful to know how these things match because he keeps putting them together. Let me just go back to, it's still not easy for me to process this because I don't see where the root of this is coming from. He said that each time you have a hamshacha comes in three lines. You have a kav yamim shuhu hachan mamshichim shlosha pa'amim. So he says this gets sent out three different times. Shebekol hamshacha mochin de gadlus yesh shlosha kavim. So every time that you're bringing in mochin de gadlus, there's going to be three lines. Now, it sounds like he's saying that there's a line for Chochmah, there's a line for Chesed, a line for Bina, for not Chesed, a line for Netzach. Became a Sheyosh Shlosha Partsufi, godless, because the reason why you have to do that is you have to feed Keser Chochma Bina. Shehem Neshama Chaim Yechida. What? So I would say like that. I'll say this, that the Neshama Chaim Yechida is actually the shefa that's going to go into the Kachav. Because you're always dealing in the Rashash with cold soma, and you see the Neshama, the Oros, the Neshama Chaim Yechida, the Oros, and the Kalim are the spheres they're going to go into are going to be Kachav. Hanikroim Keser Chochma Bina. They're also called by that name. Okay, so we know that. So he doesn't include Das. He starts with Keser. So he said the Chochma Bina. V'lechein heim shlosha kavei hachan. So therefore, these are the three lines of the hachan. He's saying that in order to, I don't really recall seeing this before, that whenever you want to bring something in to the Chochmah, it also comes with a line for Chesed and a line for Netzach. That's what it sounds like. So he says that this is what happens. The Chamishi Partsufi, the Yasas. Yasas has 5 Partsufim. Mitel Chamishi Partsufi Yasos. So he explains it out. Hamochim the Gadlos heim shlosha Partsufi Chapanimim. So the Mochim, the Gadlos, are on the inside. That's what I would have thought. It's a little confusing. So the Mochin, the Gadlos, Heim Shlosha Partsufim Benimim, there's the 3 inner Partsufim. Shehem Neshama Chaim Yechida. Now this is interesting because here he's saying that the Oros, Shehem, are also considered to be Partsufim. V'chagadlos is Zecha v'nikra Gadlos Rishon. So this Gadlos is called Gadlos Rishon. The Vishabah Yasos because it comes from Yasos, and that's a general speaking rule. For Adkan, so he says now up until this point, he says, let me see where I'm at. I got a little mixed up here. So Adkan, okay, over here, Diber Malvushi Yasos. It's talking about the Lavush of Yasos. Amalvishim Alamochim, which is covering over the Mochim. Okay, so he's going to talk about this, I think, and we're going to have a little picture of it on the left, on the next page. So he says, Im hachan the mochin the penimium the tzadi umakifim. So these are the oros that are coming. Umakifim the lamed mem the shlosha tzalmin the shama chayin yechidid the ranchi. Let me translate that again. So we're dealing with an aspect of the ranchi. Let's say im hachan the mochin penimium. Mochin penimium go with the tzadi the tzalim. Umakifim, are the lamed mem that's up. Psalm, the Shlosha Tzalmin Neshama of the 2 Tzlomim that cover over Neshama Chayin Yechida. And I said that because, wait a minute, so let's finish it out. The Shlosha Tzalmin Neshama Chayin Yechida of the Naranchi, the Neshama. So this is the light bulbs of Neshama Chayin Yechida, which are lit up in the panoply or the display of the Naranchi. Which Naranchi, because every one of these has its own Naranchi, the Neshama, the Ma uben the Ma, which are the 2 sides of Ma. Now, what does he mean by that? And that's probably important. Mitoch Levusha Yasos. So let's talk about the Levushim that cover over Yasos, that is the Mochim. Nemshachim on Slomim the Yasos. So the Slomim come in. Now, what are the Slomim? The Slomim are a level of covering. It's a level of light that is covering over what comes before that. The Mochin covers over the Mochin. So he says, and the Mochin cover over the Oros. So he said, Nimshachim atzlam the Yasos, and he says what? He says, Hagadlos Rishon Shalmuach HaChochma Heim Hachan. So the first thing is B'toch Levusha Yasos. So inside of the Levushim of the Yasos is the Tzlomim. So we have called Tzlomos. So you have Levushim before you have Kalim, and then you have inside of that you're going to have Tzlomim, the Yasos. Hagadlos Rishon Shalmuach HaChochma Heim Hachan. So the first piece of Gadlus is going to be the Chacham. Shahare Heim Kav Yamin, because they represent the right line. Veim kululim b'pnimiyim, which is the tzadi. So in other words, going back to the tzalim again, they have an aspect of it which goes in, which is called the tzadi the tzalim. Umakifim, which are the lam and mem the tzalim. Hamochin b'pnimiyim heim hatzadi the tzalim. So he says it again. Umakifim heim the lam and mem the tzalim. I guess he's going between black print, darker print, and lighter print. Okay. The Shloshit Psalms and Psalm, so there are 3 tzlomim, and the 3 tzlomim he's saying refer to Neshama Chayin Yechida, Shechagadlus Hu Kochov, because they're going to go into the Kochov. We kind of saw that before. Shem Shlosha Chachalochim Apanimim, which is the 3 different divisions that we have in the inside of the Tzadi the Tzalim. Shehem Neshama Chayin Yechidas, which is those 3 divisions are going to be those 3 particular lights that are going to go into the Kochav. Then the Rantchi, the Neshama, so we had this phrase in the Rantchi of Neshama. Shachagalus Arisha Nimshach Mepartzef and Neshama. Neshama goes along with Yisrael Saba, Saba of Tavuna, Shahu Yisrael Saba Tavuna. Then he says, Dema U Ben Dema. So that's a little bit harder. So Dama U Men is the male side, which would be the Chochmah side, and the Ben would be some aspect of Ima. Shehem Kav Yamim Shad Yisrael Saba Tavuna, which is really the right line of Yisrael Saba Tavuna. Let's look at it again. He says that Yasos, he says it's a Ma, and it's a Ben, but it's always dealing with Ma. Ma is the right side. Shehem Kav Yamim Shad Yisrael Saba, and we know that there was a switch in Ma de Ma. So what's the Ma de Ma? The Ma de Ma, who's Kav Yamim to Yisrael Saba, it's the right line of Yisrael Saba. Uben is Uben Dema who Kaviyamim Shalatavuna. So we have the right line of Tavuna in over here with the right line, the normal right line, which is Ma. Shahare Acher Achilaf Nihi Kaviyamin Mamin Shal, the line, the left line is going to have a Ben Dema in it. It's going to have a Ben Dema. So we're not going to go into this more detail here. What time? We still got a little bit more time. So number Hay says, with this hamshacha that we're doing, right, and we're seeing that it's going down the 3 lines because the 3 lines have to hit kachav. And what goes into kachav, he says, is the nachi, the neshama chayin yechida, because that's what goes into kachav. Ima Mochen, so he says, Ima Mochen, the Chochmah, the Godless, Rishon, Shehem Shnei Shemos Av V'Shnei Kasa. So he says, what is this? He says, Im Amochen, the Chochmos, the Godless, which are 2 names. How we get to this exactly, let's see. He says, Av, and then he says, Shemos, so 2 Avs and 2 Kasas. Now, we're going to see this on the next page. We'll go over there and we'll take a look at it. Besocha Levushim, so inside of Levushim, and inside of the Tzlam and the Yasos, Nimshachan HaMochim Atzman, then the Mochin come through this itself. Now, we know that the Mochin is the place right before the Oros. V'ka'ez, now, what we're talking about now, V'kuvonim rak al kav yamim shehem chachmos the godless rishon. We're only looking here at the right line, which is the chachmos the godless rishon. We said that before. That's where the chachmos come down, which is chacham. Shehem hamochan and niknasim begedushas hayom. These are the mochim that came in already. Shehem shnei shemos Av. There are 2 names of Av, so he has to keep going back and forth between this in the explanation. So Shemos Av, Shemos HaMochim, Heim Shnei Shemos Av. So the names of the Mochim are 2 different Mochim of Av. So he said Echad B'Yisrael, and why do we have 2? So if you look at the drawing, which we're going to see in a minute, you see it's always double up. So he says you have an Akia, we'll say, for example, if you look at the left, we'll look at it in a second. He says, then you have another one. And you have a Havai, you have another Havai. One's for Yisrael Saba, one's for Stavuna. And that is true. Those are Oros we're looking at, and they're streaming it. Va'echad mitavuna, v'shnei shemos kasa, what do they have to do with? Heim shnei alavushim, This is a lavush, lashon lavush. He says, why? Because, and he's also calling it kasa, which over here I don't see any kasa, but I just see the pashut. Shalavushim, shalamochim, the godless, aim shemos, ekya, they're always going to be ekyas. So in other words, ekya is a lavush. Now, in other places, I've seen that in these, when we're looking at the lights, and we'll just look at it for a second here, they call the ekya a makif, and which is always confusing to me. And the havaya is going to be the benimis. So anyway, he's saying something slightly different. Heim shnei halavushim shalavushim shalamochim. The godless are shemos of ekya. Heim b'milu yudin, but don't. It's just not like an ekya, whether he's showing on the next page just a pasha. He says over here that actually this lavush is really in a milui form. The fishahu moach hachachma, because it's a moach hachachma. So he says v'hem shnayim. There's two of them. Echad the Yisrael Saba ve'echad the Tavuna. So let's see how this goes. We have a little bit more here. We have a few minutes. So now, let's just look at it and let's just see what it is. At the top, he says Shnei Salme Gadlus Rishon de Yasos. Now understand we're talking about slomim. Sloming is a lavush. So he said. So it says like this: Hachan the mekifi mem de yasos. So this is what the right line of the mem looks like in Olam Atzilus. And then he says number Zion, he has Hachan the mekifi lamed de yasos. Now he just previously had said that as these appear, well, I don't know what is getting mixed up between one thing and the next, but they're not in a milui form. So there's just looking at the pashut, that's what you're seeing there. Let's look at number Vav. Number Vav says, Hachan de Mekifi mem de Yaso. So this is the right line of the Mekifim. We're always dealing with the right line here, apparently, of the mem the Yasos, which is the Muach HaChachma Kalu Mehachan. So the Muach HaChachma, we said like this, has these three, well, he says it's three lines. And it comes out to be two different times Chachman. Echad, you have to have two of them. Okay, Echad the Yisrael Saba, ve'Echad the Tavuna. That's the reason why you always have two when you look at it. Ve'hem Chachma Chachan, and what are they? That align the right line, which he said that gets divided into three in some way. Hachan Shalamaki Fa'elyon, which is the Mem Detzal. So therefore you see that here's the patach, the segel, and the chirik, which represents the three different parts of, I guess, of the right line. So since on the right line, chachmahu nikud patach. Chachma is a nikud of a patach, which goes with chachma. Chesed is a nikud, the segel, which we know, and netzach hu nikud a yichirik. We know that too. Let's look at number Zion. Number Zion up above says, Hachan the Mekifi Lamed the Yasa. So we're talking about, these are all oros, and these are what the oros look like. And we have to, and he's talking about the slomim that cover over these lights, I assume. Hachan zel hu mocha chochma shel hamakif hasheni, of the second makif, which is the Lamed Detzalem. Shulchan Lamed Detzalem. Behem shnei pamim hachan, and there are two different times that we're going to say hachan. Echad the Yisrael Saba, ve'echad the Tavuna. So that's what it always is, like that. Let me see if there's time to do one more. So now we're on page Shin Kaf Daled. We're going to skip the Shefa, and we're going to go to number Ches. Number Ches says, Hachan de mochin benimim de tzadi de yaso. So now we want to get this is the tzadi de tzalem. So actually I was supposed to look at the drawing first, where it says Hachan de mochin benimim de tzadi de tzalem. And these are the oros. These are the oros inside of the tzadi de tzalem. And then he says down below, mochin. Here's the mochin. First, then you're going to have the mochin, and this moach is going to be. This is where you see the av in milui. There are two of them. Mochin, mochin. He says, and then the vushim are going to be on an akia with a milui of yudin. Okay, we're going to stop here, Rebbe, because I want to get ready and go before try to beat a little traffic. Have a wonderful day. God willing, we'll see you tomorrow. Call to.